And ladies and gentlemen, we are live. It is February 28th of 2022, and this is the Voice of Reason podcast. My name is Sean Phillips, and as always, I am joined alongside my two co-hosts, the one, the only Andrew Van Beber, and the great and powerful Travis Kirkendall. Gentlemen, how are we doing on this lovely Monday evening?
Fantastic. I'm already doped up, so I don't have another panic attack tonight talking about Russia.
What did you double up on? What is it?
I'm on
Benadryl or something? What did you take?
Yes, I'm all doped up.
He's on that Khalifa Kush. He he had a couple gummy.
Yes.
No,
I
wish.
lit up a doobie before. I lit up and smoked a doobie before tonight's broadcast.
Honestly, if you did the whole broadcast with that
Andy,
voice, if you're
Andy
actually
doesn't.
high, that'd be actually really impressive.
That'd be pretty great.
Yes, I smoked a doobie.
Andy doesn't partake in the ganja.
I as a resident, what do they call those RAs? I forgot what it stood for now, but I was an RA in college, and I smelt my fair share of at a Christian college, no less. I smelt my fair share of smoke coming from rooms, and I walk in. I was like, "What are you guys doing?" Nothing. Okay.
Hey man, we're just passing around the Holy Spirit, man.
Here's my Holy Spirit, dude. All right.
That's awesome.
Oh, I smell it every day going to work.
Well,
like just going down the highway.
That was what I was going to ask you.
Yeah, if they say that they don't.
Andy, do you know if in Illinois, where it's recreationally legal, are teachers are they allowed to smoke in the state of Illinois?
I don't know. That's a very good question. I would probably.
I want to say it depends.
I think they have to. I think it's like
school,
screening.
Like if it's public or if it's private.
There's they want to open a dispensary and they want to open a dispensary in Pittsfield. I don't know where that's coming at, so they don't live there anymore. But I don't know. But we do want to welcome a new broadcast partner tonight. It's just with our software we can stream to so many different sources, and so we welcome those who are joining us. If they are joining us on Vaughn TV Live or Vaughn Live, it is a new streaming service that streams thousands of podcasts and live podcasts. And so that is another one of our broadcasting partners, along with Spotify, Apple Podcast, Breaker, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, iHeartRadio, and we are still waiting for Pandora.
And it is coming along here as we keep chugging along. It's actually pretty exciting to kind of see where we keep on expanding to. Well, before we kind of deep dive into today's show, one of the most important things is we are brought to you by American Traditional Coffee. Please make sure you check out AmericanTradtionalCoffee.com for any of your coffee.
Can I jump in?
You sure can. Oh, look at that beautiful bag!
Wow. This is our new decaf. I'm actually about to throw one in right now. But I had to throw that shameless plug in there.
No, that's what the show is for.
I'm glad you did.
And we would also like to say that anyone who knows of businesses, we are going to be running an advertising special for businesses that wish to become that would like to sponsor us. We are, and I'll just give you a little taste of it. If you have a business or you know somebody who wants to have a business, I've mentioned on our podcast, we will give one free plug, and there's other details that will come with that. If you will want to contact me or Sean or Travis, we will give you the details on that. We are entering into some new partnerships that we would like to invite local people, and then we're going to be giving like little stickers you can put on your cash register or in your window or something like that to give us a spread and everything like that. And so if you are interested, please contact us and we will let you know on that. And as always, we have the Voice of Reason comment line down below, 636-344-8097. And also our chat window is live there in the lower right-hand corner for those who are watching us on Facebook Live and YouTube Live and Twitter Live.
And Twitch.
Oh,
I'm gonna
and
be
yes,
pulling up right
I
now
forgot
so
Twitch.
I
Yes.
can check us out. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm actually really excited about this show with you guys. Not only is this our 52nd episode,
Oh, yes.
we
Episode
are
52.
Is it
we are
really?
on episode
Wow.
52, which means our next episode is officially going to be the launch of season 2. So we are extremely excited, extremely humbled that we have been along. A lot of you guys have been on this journey with us, been on this ride, and it's only seeming to get better. I know this for a fact. We crossed a pretty big milestone. We've reached over 500 likes on our Facebook page, which
As
is
of today.
huge. For those of Yeah, as of today, we've had well over 1,000 downloads on our episodes, which is awesome for us. And the trend is only going up each and every week. I can say one thing I was really excited about this episode to do was a couple of people actually reached out to me and said that they are very excited about this episode particularly. So that was pretty cool because if you are watching our show or listening to us live right now, then I'm sure you guys have kind of been following what's been happening in the news as of late and what's going on in the world. And so we're going to kind of talk about just what our week's experiences look like with it as Travis gets up in his jumpsuit. Um, and this has kind of been a bit of a crazy week. Um, and it's one that I've been pretty engaged with. I've probably annoyed a lot of people on my social medias with a lot of the sharing of information, the information that I got and could share that I would share, because things are a bit crazy. Travis, you were telling me earlier what it was a week ago today that we were discussing how Russia officially had declared uh, independent states in the Ukraine, if I'm not mistaken. That was just literally a week ago.
Yes. Mhm.
I believe it was. Yeah, it's the situation's changed rapidly every day.
And
It's been crazy to follow it.
how weird was that when we, and I just want to share this from my perspective. So we dismissed from school early on Thursday because of a snow day, and I was texting. We all were texting each other probably on Thursday. Travis was probably tower climbing, but Sean and I were just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then I mean I came home and I had it going on. I had it going on four different screens on my TV screen, just watching everything and consuming as much as I could because I mean it blew my mind that I had to tell myself, okay, is this real? First of all, are we experiencing something like this? And just to let it, just to let it sink in, I think was a lot. I don't know about you guys, but for me to take was a lot to take in and just consume everything in the moment and what was going on and how everybody. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but I mean, just how everybody thought this was just going to be a walk in and the Russians were going to walk in and it was going to be a cakewalk and there was going to be no problem and just where it's gone from there.
Yeah, Travis, I'd love to get your thoughts on when you first started hearing information about how the Russian military had entered the Ukraine and started to have attacks on the Ukrainian military and their installations. What kind of went through your head?
Oh, I mean, I've been following. So I had known about tensions with Ukraine and Russia for quite a while. A lot of it back when I was in the military, because when you're in the military, you're learning about that kind of stuff. They're telling you guys about it. They're getting you ready for it. You're training for it, whatnot. So I had known there's been issues, and I know you deployed for that specific reason too. And leading up to it, I started to. I go back to the Northern Provisions page because those guys have done such a great job of covering this whole situation. Them, and shout out to like Havoc Journal, OAF Nation, even Wetsuit, who's like they're like an airborne brand. They've been doing great coverage too. So I've kind of been able to see the buildup, and then when it actually launched, and Russia said it's peacekeeping, or we're going to liberate the people that want to be part of Russia, and then we see how false that narrative was. If you didn't believe it already, you shouldn't believe it now. And I just want to say, I think what's been really interesting to watch, I don't think we've ever had a war like this. And what I mean by that is the coverage that this war has got with social media. I'm somebody I have a lot of issues with social media, but you can't deny the impact that social media has had on this specific conflict and the support that Ukraine and the coverage it's gotten. I mean, I truly believe this is one of those situations where social media has really brought the whole world in on this conflict. But like you're able to go on your newsfeed and get like minute by minute updates on everything that's going on. You're able to see footage on the ground. You're able to see interviews and stuff like that.
Live feeds as well.
Yeah, you can watch live feed of the war going on. Like there's YouTube channels of it. You can go on Instagram. They do Instagram lives of it. I mean, it's just, I don't think we've ever had a war like that where you could just see it in real time. And I think it has helped Ukraine by far. I mean, before you wouldn't get that kind of coverage. So it's been really interesting to see that dynamic with this conflict. And I got some other stuff I'd like to say too, but we'll get further on the conversation for that.
Well, do you guys think that the social media coverage of this has been why there's been such a, not even just from foreign governments, but foreign support from around the globe, from people that are in the United States, people that are in other nations, people that are volunteering to go into the Ukraine to join the Ukrainian military, and the GoFundMe's and the links?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that this kind of coverage is a big reason why, at least it seems like, the outside support, not just from the government, but the support of the people, is pretty strong with the Ukraine, at least from what I've seen? I don't know how many Tucker Carlsons are donating to Putin right now, but from what we're seeing, like, amongst the people, what do you guys think?
For everything that is happening, and like you guys said, I mean, I am totally amazed by how this is how it's really being reported. This is probably one of the first events that I've seen fairly reported pretty much by everybody, and everybody, all the networks, everybody is pouring everything that they can into supporting the Ukrainian people. Although I did get quite a chuckle today, Sean, from that tweet that you posted of the one senator.
Oh,
what was? Do you have that handy where you could read that tweet real quick?
It was. We'll pull it up right now. Yep.
But it was.
Pull it up right now.
But
it was a tweet from Wendy Rogers, who is a senator from the state of Arizona. She is a hardcore Trumpian politician, Trump politics kind of individual. Unfortunately, seems to be batshit crazy out of her mind. But her tweet today at noon said, Germany wants to rebuild the Third Reich. Russia wants to rebuild the old USSR. America just needs to make America great again instead of meddling in foreign wars, nation building, and giving foreign aid.
Fantastic.
If you go through, and I don't have it pulled, but if you go through Wendy it's at Wendy, Wendy, Rogers, Rogers, uppercase A, uppercase Z, Wendy Rogers AZ. If you go through her Twitter feed, there are hundreds if not thousands of tweets in support of Trump. Tons before the actual attacks. If you go back, she hasn't deleted all of them yet. There was a lot of supporting Putin. There was a lot of negative tweets about the Ukrainian president, which I'm starting to see a lot of that with these extreme hardcore Trump extremist kind of politicians and political advocates. Like I'm starting to see it's mostly them talking about how this is all Biden's fault, how, if Trump was there, they'd be having tea and crumpets with one another
Right.
in the Ukraine and Russia. And this is one of the weirdest, like, just partisan politics are like, this is, I mean, it's always, their fault, our fault, but this one's like, people are making it about America when it doesn't always need to be about America, and it's kind of awkward.
Well, I will. I do want to, and I do compliment my wife. She is kind of tagging in on and off tonight. She just already commented tonight. She said, "Do you know that other countries don't refer to us as America because we are not the only country in North America? Only the U.S. would declare
United
an entire
States.
continent as our own. Other countries refer to us as the United States or the States. Maybe we need to remind ourselves that we don't need to make America great again. We are quickly losing whatever unity we had." So,
Why isn't she the one that is on the podcast out of your household?
because she doesn't like conflict, and thank you, jerkface. So, but I do want to provide another perspective, and I just want to get this in before we get this too far buried into tape. Um, uh, this is actually was made within the last 2 hours. The Ukrainian ambassador made a statement before the UN, the General Assembly, and he's also, if you want to see some entertaining television, look up earlier this week when the Ukrainian and the Russian ambassador on the Security Council addressed each other. It was a very tense exchange. But this was the Ukrainian ambassador. What time is it now? So this would have been about. It would have been, well, it's probably been 3 hours now. So it was about 6:30 New York time and 5:30 our time. So this was a statement, and the Ukrainian UN ambassador is reading a text that was sent to him by a mother of a Russian soldier shortly before he was killed today. And he read this today on the floor of the UN. So I want to share this with you guys real quick. If I can get over to it. Here we go.
From the screenshot of the smartphone of a killed Russian soldier. That's an actual screenshot from someone who is dead already.
Alyosha, how are you doing? Why has it been so long since you responded? Are you really in training exercises? Asks the mother of the killed soldier. Moments before he was killed. Mama, I'm no longer in Crimea. I'm not in training sessions. Where are you then? Papa is asking whether I can send you a parcel. What kind of a parcel, Mama, can you send me? What are you talking about? What happened? Mama, I'm in Ukraine. There is a real war raging here. I'm afraid. We are bombing all of the cities together, even targeting civilians. We were told that they would welcome us. And they are falling under our armored vehicles, throwing themselves under the wheels and not allowing us to pass. They call us fascists. Mama, This is so hard. And this was several moments before he was killed.
And
Imagine if you
so that was, guys, that's pretty hardcore, you know. And this was, I mean, and go back to what you said earlier, Sean, about social media and technology and everything that's coming, and for him to have access to that a Russian mother was able to send that to him. And I don't, for those of you who are watching it on the live, you could actually see he actually showed the screenshots of it, and so it wasn't something that was created. um it, the the human side of this, and this is what's been the most difficult part for me in all of this, is to look at this and to see these aren't just, you know, people living in a third world country. The Ukraine is just as industrialized, just as modern as we are. People with jobs and people, you know, with children, and you know, and just trying to live an everyday life, trying to live the dream. And they're being affected by this in ways that we can't even begin to imagine. I mean, that was the first I'd heard of somebody saying, "Hey, we're throwing ourselves underneath, you know, underneath these Russian vehicles." And the Russian, we saw in St. Petersburg. What was it? What is this? This is Monday, so it was Saturday night in St. Petersburg, a rally of 1,000 people. And by the way, they were all arrested for protesting against the war. There's been I think they said there's been close to 1,500 people total who have been, and people are afraid to take to the streets to protest because Russia is trying to quash any anti-war sentiment. The Russian people are not behind this effort. When you watch the exchange between, and I shared this with the guys in our group chat the other day, there was a televised cabinet meeting that Vladimir Putin had with his cabinet, and his chief spy was there, and he was taking recommendations from people on the committee, and this chief spy got up and he said, you know, we want to recognize the what they call it, the Donbass region, where these breakaway, we want to recognize them. And then he kind of stuttered, and then Putin's strong arming the guy and saying, okay, what else then? What else? Speak plainly. Do you want, what else do you want? And he's like, and we believe that we should recognize the Ukrainian independence. And Putin shut him down and said, we're not discussing that now. And I mean, even people within his own cabinet are recognizing and recommending to him, this is the wrong war at the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong people. And Putin is going to go down swinging. That's why was it Saturday morning, Sean, when he played the nuclear card?
I think that was Saturday, yeah.
So why don't we discuss that for a little bit before we go into some other things?
That's a desperate move.
Why do you say that, Travis?
I don't think you pull the nuclear card unless you're running out of options really fast. You know, I don't think the problem with the nuclear card, and I think we discussed this before, whether it was on the show or off the show. Do you take it literally or you take it seriously? Like, is he literally going to launch a nuclear missile, or is it all talk? And it's one of those things where we've never, since World War II, there hasn't been a nuclear bomb activated. And so do you call his bluff? I mean, for me, I don't think he's actually going to do it. I think it's a political, or it's a stunt, because he's out of options.
One of our commenters from Twitch says, well, it's de-escalation through escalation. And I think that is just pretty much what we said. But when you look at what, Sean, why don't you make your comment, what you were saying about the Chinese through all of this as well?
So one of the, we know that tensions with China have been there. There was reports that apparently, I want to say it was 2 weeks ago, President Joe Biden, his delegation had met with the Chinese government and had essentially given them the intel that we had on Russia in accordance with these this attack on the Ukraine. And China went and said, "Cool, thanks, nothing to it here," and turned over that intel and turned over that information to the Russian government. Okay, we know that Russia and China they're buddy buddy. I'm sure that you know their leaders kick back, relax. China keeps talking about, oh, come on back, man. That it's great over here in communist. It's great in communist China. You want it, and Putin's probably sitting there like, oh, I remember the good old days, boys. Trust me. If it was up to me, I'd have been there yesterday. So we know that they've been buddied up to one another, and now the reason why China has abstained like they did at the beginning of all this is I think they wanted it was almost like a test. Hey, let's see how strong of an adversary or how strong of an ally Russia could potentially be for us. Let's see how they do this with the Ukraine because hey, we kind of want to do this same exact shit to Taiwan. So let's just see if we're going to be preoccupied with Taiwan and we piss the US off, will Russia be able to you know, deal with our problems from the West? And clearly, Russia is struggling to deal with the Ukraine. Now, mind you, maybe it's their tactics of sending a bunch of 18-year-old untrained soldiers into their nation to have a bunch of teenagers and young individuals in their 20s go out and die for the greater good of Putin. But I think that now we're actually, because of the Ukraine, and this is why this is so important in my opinion, because of the strength and the bravery of the people of the Ukraine, I think that China at least might take a step back and go, okay, now we have to reevaluate because Russia isn't acting like we thought that they could or that they should. So now we have to go, okay, well, who's next? Because look at what happened when allegedly they flew that with a day after, 2 days after
Right.
Russia originally invaded the
They
Ukraine.
were doing those flyovers
They
of
sent,
Taiwan, right?
yeah, they invaded Taiwanese airspace, and then Australia and Japan both retaliated just like I thought they would retaliate. Australia said, okay, well, we'll send an anti-naval aircraft to Taiwan. Japan said, we're going to send a fleet of fighters to Taiwan. So one of the things, like, and I've actually learned quite a bit of this going through my international business class and just from doing a bit of research, we've talked about it a little bit on here. Australia and China are not in a good position right now. And it is kind of one that like flies under the radar. Those two are as on edge as we are with China, if not more. It's bad over there. There's a lot of different
I would
sanctions
say
and
more.
tariffs that have dealt with goods and services between the two nations, and it's not good. Japan is the same way. So you look at those tensions. China now sees that potentially their greatest ally might not have had the firepower that they thought they did. Would this mean that we might see China try to mend the wounds with India?
Right.
Are they going to start really pumping more infrastructure and more resources into North Korea?
If we look at these,
It'll be interesting.
if we look at these other comments that we received here, we do have a Murdog sighting.
Uh-oh.
Russia had the same issues, and I wanted to bring this point up. Russia had the same issues in Afghanistan in 1979, and the Ukraine. And I like this point, Murray, that you said. The Ukraine is a little bit more formidable foe than the Mujahideen, and that is correct. I mean, the Mujahideen was just a group of warlords who had come together, most of which were, by the way, funded by the United States and the CIA. And, you know, this is going to be a bog down. And then we have another comment there from Jay Bookie who says, I think this is also making China um, second guess an invasion. Invading Taiwan would be exceptionally difficult given the fact that it's an island, is well armed, and has a relatively robust domestic ballistic missile program. Okay, and I agree. You know what we're looking at here is Russia is not just walking in. Now, I just got I just got a thing. Uh, so satellite imagery is showing a 40-mile long caravan from heading into Kiev. Okay, well that is fresh on my phone right now. I don't know if you guys got that or not. Satellite imagery is showing that's quite discerning right there. Um, so what I mean, if you're Vladimir Putin, you know you're looking at this, and I said this last week, and I'm going to say it again this week. This gentleman is a Cold War relic. At the time of the fall of the Soviet Union, he was living in what was East Berlin. By that time, East Berlin and West Berlin had united, and he was full of sour grapes. He was a he. I believe that he wants to make Russia communist again, and he's wanting to do this. He's already we're learning more about this d bag that is the Belarusian president, who has been in power since 1994. This guy is a grade A class douchebag, and he is he was quoted as saying the other day, we have no intention of invading the Ukraine, but at the same time we're seeing Russian troops along the Belarusian border. As of yesterday, I believe it was that and I'm failing at this guy's name right now. I probably could pronounce it if I saw it, but he's going to allow for nuclear missiles to be put into Belarus, and so this guy says he's not wanting to get involved, but yet he's promoting himself as a flunky of Putin. He was called, and I'm just going to go ahead and get his name, but he was also referred to as one of the last great dictator of Europe.
Interesting.
Very. Yeah, I'm looking
I,
over the caravan you were talking about, and I'm wondering what kind of air support Russia has over top of it. But yeah, no, it definitely seems like Kyiv is in for another rocky night, and whether or not that's a direct invasion or if they're going to try to encircle the city and cut off supply. That'll be interesting.
The Belarusian president's name is Alexander Lukashenko, so that's for future reference. But this guy came into power in questionable manner in 1994. There were protests in 1994 which were quickly put down, claiming that he had stole the election, and so he has run it like his own piggy bank ever since. So. But
I wanted.
Go ahead, Sean.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you got it.
Oh, so I just wanted to get your guys' insight real quick on one of the, the next wave or topics of discussion. So we see where things are at with the Ukraine and the escalation that Putin, has gone to, where we are at, and there's still the talks of after this. Where is the Ukraine? Where is the Ukraine's place in NATO? Now, it was Finland, and what was the other nation
that was going to join? That was wanting to join NATO.
Correct.
It was Finland and Denmark.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just didn't want to be wrong.
No, Denmark.
So Finland and Denmark now, and was, if I'm not mistaken, was that what had set Putin to the
Yes.
talks of
Yes.
nuclear escalation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because they were showing he referred to it as aggressive measures by NATO members and their allies.
So Travis, I'd love to get your thoughts on what you think, if that is the escalation, the show of force essentially that Putin is going to try to pull. Do you think NATO allows Finland and Denmark in? What do you think the next steps are? And I know that we had kind of talked about if this is a big show or worst case scenario, what do you see the real repercussions being if Finland, Denmark are granted membership into NATO?
Repercussions. The only thing I see there is it.
Let me just
I think
interrupt.
it'll.
Not Denmark, Sweden. I just found here Sweden. I'm sorry.
Is it Sweden? Okay.
Sweden.
Okay.
My fault.
Okay.
My fault.
Okay, so Sweden and Finland.
Yes, Sweden and Finland. Yes.
Okay. Repercussions wise, I think it definitely makes tensions higher in the long term and short term. I don't see Russian and U.S. relations improving anytime soon. I see them getting in NATO, though. I see it happening. And the reason why, I think this whole situation has really rejuvenated NATO as a whole. We had talked about how, I think it was Andy, you said that NATO has kind of become this outdated thing. And now it's kind of seems like it's taking life again because of this situation going on with Ukraine. And, I got two things I want to say with this. One, when we originally talked about, the U.S.'s response to this, we were saying, oh, it's a weak response. It's not going to work. And that, Ukraine needs more. I don't think the world really gave Ukraine a chance in this. And now that Ukraine is showing that, hey, they can actually fight and they can actually hold off a superpower military, I think that's given NATO a chance to kind of jump on this and use their momentum to kind of grow their influence against Russia and China. So I don't think it was really Biden's plan that was successful. I think they just got lucky with the fact that Ukraine's putting up a damn fight and they're able to build off of it.
What I do find,
and I want to get your guys' go ahead.
What I do find interesting, and tag along with what you said there, when I'm looking down the list, so NATO originally, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which was to counter what was known as the Warsaw Pact. Okay, and it's interesting to see over the last 40 years, 50 years, the countries that have joined the NATO, and again, former Soviet Warsaw Pact countries. Let me just go down through, just pick out a few: Albania, Bulgaria, the Czech Republic, Hungary, Lithuania, Montenegro, North Macedonia, Poland, Romania, Slovakia, Slovenia, and those were all former Eastern Bloc countries. And I find it interesting that now with Sweden and with Finland saying we're going to, Putin, I believe, is, I don't know if this is the last great act of a desperate man, like we said earlier, but, if we want to look at this and say, okay, what do we do with this guy? I mean, he's getting, let's agree on this point. He is getting viced down. When they removed Russia from the SWIFT banking system, and that is a final thing now, correct? Has that been made official now that Russia's been removed from the SWIFT banking system?
I want to say yes.
Sean, if you can look that up real
Sean's
quick.
looking it up.
But, when you look at the sanctions, and, from everything from top to bottom, we're freezing these oligarchs' accounts. The guys who are probably, there's probably a little bit of a nudge from these oligarchs that are, that have their hand in the American cookie jar All right, let's. I mean, the Russian mafia is a real thing, folks. It is. It does have its. It does have its place in America, and now we're freezing everything that looks like, smells like, acts like Russian in the United States. We're now seeing that the Russian airlines are not being allowed to fly into many, if not all, European countries into the United States. So now the people who want to leave Russia, people who are wanting to fly out, are stuck there. If they are of any kind of wealth, their wealth is frozen. Russian assets are frozen. And is SWIFT, is that an official thing then, Sean?
So the last news report that I saw came from 12 hours ago, and it was still a discussion. So I don't know if they are officially taken off of SWIFT yet, according to the news articles that I could find. Let me try one more source real quick.
And that's another comment here that we have is they are fighting like hell, but they won't survive with the waves of bodies being thrown at them, and eventually wholesale indiscriminate bombing of civilian population centers. And yes, that is because they are no longer. I mean, you're seeing. I saw the video today of an apartment complex being basically ripped to shreds by these missiles. I mean, you're not. You targeted an airport. You captured Chernobyl. By the way, I'm still trying to figure out the logic in that one, where a former nuclear meltdown happened, and good job with that. But I mean, what is your Putin's goals have? That's another thing too. Putin's goals have been out of left field. This whole denazification of the Ukraine. Has anybody even looked into the fact that Zelensky is a Jew? His grandfather was killed in a concentration camp. Has anybody had that discussion yet? You know, and he's saying we need to we need to denazify the Ukraine. And this is a military intervention. Intervention into what? Because what is he? There's no clear set objectives that he has that is holding any water, that is holding any proof. This guy, I mean,
I would legitimately like to see the exact Russian propaganda that we see being fed to, Russians, what they're seeing, because I know, at least for where we're located, typically in the West, where we are typically seeing a more pro-Ukraine side of the war. And we know that propaganda comes from both sides. That's just, it is what it is. So you got to take everything with a grain of salt. But I would truly be interested in seeing what kind of, straight up lies the Russian media is spewing out to Russian citizens, along the lines of, Ukrainians had planned terrorist attack on, Russians here, Russians there, and this is why we need this kind of war, because propaganda is very real, and we know how Russian trolls are. They're some of the best in the world when it comes into infiltrating media and infiltrating social media, and rigging things kind of to sway the way that they want things to go. So, and I looked again, so it doesn't seem, if Russia's removed from SWIFT, I'd imagine it'll be sometime this week, but just from what I've read, I haven't seen any confirmations, but it seems that more and more nations are voting for that to be the case. Sorry about that yawn. So hopefully we'll see some changes there. I wanted to get your guys' opinion on this. When we see the protests that are happening in Russia, okay, and if it does get to the point where Russia is removed from SWIFT, removed from the banking systems and having the opportunity to transfer money, if assets are frozen, and if the Russian people don't have access, no liquid funds, if in a few months' time, when these sanctions really start to kick the butt, we've already seen how the Russian economy in the short term has been affected. Long term will have even more consequences, because the thing is, in a week, it's not the end of the world for everybody.
Not yet.
But in
No.
time, this is really, where we're going to see issues. Now, how long, if you guys could anticipate, how long would you necessarily think we'd be looking at until we get a legitimate coup, a la January 6th, in Russia, to where actual power is overthrown? V, you might know this. I don't, off the top of my head. Is there a way for the Russian people, for the cabinet to actually remove Biden from his position, or
Biden or
does
Putin?
he have
Putin?
protection?
You mean Putin?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Not Biden. I mean, they can throw Biden out. Yeah. Putin. Same guy. My bad. I'm joking. Yeah, Putin. Are there ways for them to
Well, the
expel
Russian
him?
so the Russian governmental system, I believe is parliamentary, and I'm looking it up right now. It is parliamentary. Yes, it's semi-presidential. It is by definition, it is a constitutional republic. Okay, and the 1993 Constitution declared Russia as a democratic, federative, law-based state with a republican form of government. All right, now this Constitution has been amended 3 times since its inception in 1993 to extend the life of the president. And again, we do want to bring out that Putin is only the second president of Russia. The first, of course, being Boris Yeltsin. Okay, and this is not. And I'm doing a scan. I've actually got this kind of. So, yeah, I'll take that back. He is the third. There was one that served in. Well, that didn't make. Oh, that's the prime minister. Okay, my bad. That's the prime. So they are parliamentarian because they do have a prime minister as well, which that doesn't make much sense to me because I've never heard of this prime minister before. But
yeah, how much say does he get this?
His name is Mikhail Mishustin. But the Russian president determines the basic direction of the Russian domestic and foreign policy and represents the Russian state within the country and foreign affairs. All right. Vladimir Putin is not, from what I'm seeing here, he does have his cabinet. He, just like we have our cabinet. And I'm looking down through here. Man, you think ours is a long, holy cow. So their cabinet then, here's the government of Russia, which corresponds to Western has a prime minister, and they do have a sort of representative system. Their parliament is a 616 member parliament. Its term is called the Federal Assembly, which consists of 2 houses, a 450 State Duma, which is what it was called back in the day, and 166 Federation Council, which is the upper house. And so it does not look like they, as far as a system of checks and balances, from what I'm seeing, just they have obviously they do have a judiciary. It's called the Judiciary of Russia. But as far as there's supposedly, they're saying there's a flexibility as the goal of their constitutional provision, and there is a system of checks and balances. So I would say if I had more time to investigate this and to look at this, I could look into this and say that there would be it's probably in small print, but you've had, yes, I see that, yes, Jay Bookie there, yes, a coup has happened in Russia several times. There's been attempted coups, and I mean Putin. But I again want to reiterate, this is not, if you're to take a poll of what's going on in Russia, if they were to allow that to happen, which they wouldn't, but if they allowed a poll to happen, I would guarantee that you would see probably, in my guess, maybe 60-40, 70-30 against this war. I mean, it seems like every source, and like I said, I've been hitting a lot of BBC lately with this, and again, Janine's been watching a lot of AP with this. And they're out on the street and they're interviewing these Russians as they're getting on the bus, and these people do not want to talk about it. They don't want their faces to be seen on television because they don't want to go to jail. And there are a lot, and these people, like I said earlier, these people who are protesting are being arrested. They are being put in jail. Okay. It's Russia says democracy on their constitution. It says it is a, federation, blah, 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 all this other crap. But when you look down at the brass tacks of the situation, Russia is, it says a republic, but in essence, it is a dictatorship. It's communism light.
I would say, looking at that cabinet meeting that you were talking about earlier, if their checks and balances worked so great and their democracy was so free, that guy would not have been so shaky speaking to Putin, saying they want to recognize Ukraine as a independent country. I don't think he would have been so nervous to say it. Because you look in that video, that guy was shaking.
Oh yeah. When he was, and we can't there because there's no translate. You'd have to read the I can't bring it up on our screen because all it is a text of what it said, and it's not even interpreted. But you guys go ahead and talk a little bit about this. I'll go ahead and talk a little bit more, and I'll bring this. I'll just read the transcript from what this guy says.
I have an interesting
and that just
theory.
kind of seems. Yeah, go ahead.
It's not my own theory, but some guy I follow said this, and it really had me wondering. So, what if? Let's put our tinfoil hats on for a second, all right?
Okay.
I don't have mine on, but what if this was a brilliant move on U.S. intelligence, all this coming to light? And here's the theory. The news came out that the U.S. shared intelligence with China about Russia's move and saying, hey, Russia's going to do this, whatnot. This is what we know. This is how we're preparing for it, whatnot. And then China went and shared that with Russia. Assuming that the knowledge that we gave them, what we told them is what they actually told Russia, being hey, the U.S. knows that you guys are going to do this. From talking with them, they're not going to send military troops to you guys. They're not going to send military troops to support Ukraine. So what if the U.S. planned on China to tell Russia that, hey, we're not going to do nothing, pretty much. You're in the clear to take Ukraine. And then Russia decides to invade Ukraine, realizes that Ukraine's way harder than they realized. And now we have almost the entire world has turned on Putin and the regime that's in charge. Because think of it too, this whole situation, NATO is without a doubt winning in this situation because they got two new countries. You got Ukraine, who's now trying to become part of the EU, and they were trying to become part of NATO. It's just a theory. I don't want to give the U.S. too much credit on this situation, if any credit.
So I'll read this transcript but it
is an interesting theory.
This whole situation. I'll let this. So this is what the. I would like to agree with the suggestion of Nikolai Platonovich. This is the chief spy speaking, that we can give our Western partners one last chance. And so now he starts stuttering because he's getting a hairy eye from Putin, presenting them with a choice in the shortest time to force Kiev to choose peace and implement the Minsk agreement. In the worst case, we have to make the decision we are discussing today. Putin says, what does that mean in the worst case? Are you suggesting we start negotiations? And Putin says, or recognize sovereignty. Now you got this guy stuttering. And Putin says, speak plainly. He said, I will support the suggestion of recognition. I would support. He's telling this guy to speak plainly. He said, "I'm supporting the proposal," and then Putin said, "Say it like it is, yes or no." I support the proposal about the entry of the Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republics into the Russian Federation. We're not talking about that. We're not discussing that, Putin says. We're talking about recognizing their independence or not, yes or no? And the spy says, yes. I support the proposal to recognize their independence. Thanks, you can take your seat. So that is, and I mean, you can look that up, just looked it up as Putin has tense exchange with his chief spy. I would encourage you guys to look up that video on YouTube. When you watch this guy's body language, is, I mean, he is as tight as, he's tightly wound as it gets. And I mean, that's telling you that these guys do not, people are afraid to cross Vladimir Putin. I mean, the more and more I look at this and the more stuff I see, and the Russian people are not supporting this. His guys within his own cabinet are not supporting this. He's getting, and as soon as, like we've been saying, and as soon as this whole thing starts imploding around him, I mean, and he better have a dang good reason. If he starts talking that use of a nuclear weapon, or, I mean, to me, nuclear weapons, and I said this last week, nuclear weapons are serving one purpose, as a deterrent. Nobody has threatened, nobody that I know of, unless you guys have heard something that I haven't heard, nobody has threatened nuclear attacks on Russia or a nuclear launch on Russia. So if you get how would you like to be the guy who launches the first nuclear weapon at somebody else? How is that going to be perceived by the rest of the world? What do you think?
Again, it's I go back to looking at his, I don't know if they were generals or where they were at, in the hierarchy of the, Russian military, but looking at those two, when Putin was giving the brief talking about how we're going to put our, nuclear weapons on high alert, and just kind of seeing those generals just kind of look at one another as they're sitting there listening, and you can just tell
tight, yeah.
The writing is there on the wall. I can't imagine. I literally, I can't imagine how, at this point, how this bodes well for him. Had Russia walked in and absolutely desecrated and demolished the Ukraine and walked through, really put a foot down and said, "This is ours now," would have been a different story, because then people would have been like, "Oh crap, yeah, Putin is about all that." But now we're seeing the doubt in his own cabinet, the doubt in the people around him, the doubt in his military. It's very interesting now. Now the tide has definitely shifted in a way that I don't think he expected, and I think that, like we talked about, I don't think other nations expected it either. You got to wonder how, Belarus is feeling, because they've backed Russia throughout this. They let Russia invade the Ukraine using their road systems. And what are the repercussions for them going to be? Because if Russia fails, then what happens to a nation like Belarus? What happens to these nations that, had his back, and to watch him get mauled over by Ukraine? Sure, with the assistance of NATO and European and Western nations, but aside from volunteers, this is the Ukrainian army and civilians that are laying boots to asses on Russia. And you can tell this is not a war that Russia wanted. Like we said, apparently these kids were told, "Hey, this is a training exercise, guys, relax." And then to find out, oh, by the way, we're shuffling you into the Ukraine, and then to find out how many people are dying, how well the Ukrainian military is fighting back, because it's not a training exercise to them. It's just not. you know, it'll be interesting. These, you know, the Ukraine being able to hold is important, but let's not act like this is something that ends soon. Let's not act like the
No,
Ukrainians,
no.
like if the Ukrainian military is done, that it's just not screw it. No, I mean the Ukrainian civilians will stay and they will fight,
Oh, this is
and
well, you're going to see
this
You're going to see it'll turn into guerrilla warfare. It'll turn into guerrilla
yes,
warfare.
yeah. Well, you're already seeing civilians throwing Molotov cocktails at tanks out of cars. I mean, I did see it was a good post that was that you know someone had said that was like like people of the Ukraine, take a look at what the United States did to win independence from Britain. Do you think we always fought fair? No, but did we win? Yes. And you know that kind of thing it just it gets scary because you know imagine if a bunch of armed Ukrainian citizens, you know, in an apartment complex light up a convoy with Molotov cocktails and
Right.
small arms fire, and then the next thing you know, an entire apartment complex is leveled by a single aircraft. That's, you know, they've kind of been able to avoid that somewhat. Obviously, there still have been civilian casualties. I think it's, before we kind of wrap things up, I would love if mass civilian casualties happen in the Ukraine due to the Russian military. Do you think allies like the United States, like nations in Europe, do you think that is when they send troops into the Ukraine?
I've often wondered what it's going to take to get NATO troops on the ground, and I've been playing this back and forth. If in my mind, what I see happening is if they take Kiev, to me Kiev is going to be the turning point. If they take Kiev and if they surround the city and they starve those, and we had one of our commenters say earlier, it's, you know, the plan is going to be probably to surround them and starve them out. If Kiev falls, all right, so then they're going to start swinging north and west. And if they push towards Belarus, and if they start marching through Belarus and they start marching towards Sweden and Finland, you know, I think that we will, and this is just, again, purely speculation, but I see if they take Kiev and if they start marching west to the Ukrainian border that borders Poland, Poland Ukraine border there, if it comes to that point, I think NATO is going to say, okay, you have an option. If you don't want to get involved with us in the full force of our multinational army and all of the supplies that we can muster, you're going to stop right where you're at. You know, this peace talk that happened today broke down at about I believe it was about 4 o'clock our time, 3 o'clock our time, and there was nothing that came out of that agreement. There was out of that meeting, and NATO. I really do think that if Kiev falls, that's going to be your next step towards NATO getting involved. If they take Kiev, and then it'll be curious to see where the Russian troops go from there. If they move north and west, or if they move more west towards Poland, you're going to have a lot of nervous. Again, Travis and I have said history repeating itself, but you're going to have a number of nervous Poles who are going to be thinking 1939 all over again when Russia marched into the eastern border and the Germans marched into the western border. The Poles are not going to take this sitting down, and they'll be angry, and that's when I see it. So if the Ukrainians can hold Kiev, you know, that's going to be the key, I think.
Yeah, I agree with what you said there. And personally, you know, as soon as we see like the Russian forces like just blatantly targeting civilians and just not caring anymore, I mean, we're already seeing it, but to the point there's like mass civilian casualties. I, I feel it's a responsibility, and my opinion's biased, but I feel it's a responsibility for us to finally step in, boots on the ground, and not just us, but all of NATO. I feel like that's when NATO needs to step in.
Well, and that's another thing I read. You mentioned that too, Travis. The international court system is there. I forgot where I read this. They're already keeping tabs. Once you start racking up civilian targets and civilian lives, those qualify as war crimes. That qualifies as war crimes, and that will bring about some more poo that'll be stirred in there. So that's something else we need to be watching for.
And if we want these laws to be taken serious, we have to uphold those laws and we have to enforce them.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
But we'll see what happens.
My last question that I've got for you guys tonight before we kind of sign out of here. What are your guys' thoughts? Now, we've seen Ukrainian celebrities, sports stars, mayors, the president, quite literally dig themselves in the trenches of this war. If, and this is a big if, but obviously it's not an impossible if warfare came to the home front of the United States, do you see the same strength physically, mentally, from our leadership that we've seen from the Ukrainian leadership?
No. Zelensky, in my opinion,
leadership, no.
Zelensky, to me, and this guy, of course, was shrouded in the whole Trump scandal and all that stuff, and trying to get him impeached and all that and everything. But if you read about this guy and you read about you can't help but like this guy. Everything that I have read, I have not seen one. I've read I was reading before we went on tonight. I was reading his bio on Britannica.com and how he studied law, and then how he went into acting. He was an actor. I sent a text to the boys today. Janine found this out in the Ukrainian version of the Paddington Bear, the live action movie. Zelensky was the voice of Paddington. This guy, I mean, he's a common everyday guy. He was a common everyday guy. He is he was a working class guy, worked his way through to get his degree. He doesn't come from the elite. He is a common everyday guy. And when Biden had proposed, I love the quote that he gave earlier this week when Biden had proposed, hey, we'll get you out of there. I'll send special elite forces to get you out of there. He said, I don't want a ride. I want ammunition. I mean, to me, this is a guy who's going to go down with the ship. He's going to be one of the last ones to be taken out. And I guarantee you won't. He's not hiding in a bunker. I bet money he's not hiding in a bunker. He does these selfie on his Instagram channel. He does lives on Instagram all the time of him walking around out on the streets. I mean, show me an American leader who would do that in time of war. I have nothing but praise for this guy.
Travis?
Yeah, it's been pretty incredible to see the leadership from Ukraine. And the answer to the first question, no, I don't see U.S. leadership being near as strong as what we've seen with the Ukrainian government. However, I do have faith in our people. I really do have faith that if something was to happen, I really do think that people would come together. I think America would hold her own, but who knows? Times are changing, and I still have faith.
Before we go tonight, I would also like to. Sean gave a nice little plug to American Traditional Coffee. Tonight's podcast is also sponsored by Van Beber and Sons DJ Services. We have booked our first 3 engagements of the year this year. We try to do about 2 to 3 weddings or events per month. Right now, you can get 10% off just for mentioning the Voice of Reason podcast. You can call we have pretty competitive rates, and if you would please, you can message me on. You can go to the link in the description here to our Facebook page. You can click on that. You can message me directly, and we would love to be able to help you out with your DJ service needs. And so please give us a check out on our webpage as well.
Yes, absolutely. And like we had said before, if you are a local or small business and or if you know of a local or small business that's trying to get the word out, that's trying to get their brand out and about, please tell them to reach out to the Voice of Reason podcast Facebook page, to myself, to Travis, or to Andy. We'd love to be in talks with them about having some potential sponsorship opportunities for them as well. Please make sure that you guys continue to give us a listen, whether it's on YouTube, Twitch, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Pandora, iHeartRadio. The list continues to just go on and on and on about where we are at. And I'm going to eventually have to type out a list so that I can physically read it whenever I go on these things so that I can actually get them all right. But please be a friend, tell a friend. Share these videos when you see us, post them throughout the week. We definitely do appreciate the support, and next week starts season 2. Holy cow.
And our good friend Matt Edelman will be with us next week. Matt said to apologize as we speak right now. Matt is cleaning out the old colon for the colonoscopy. Send good thoughts, prayers his way tomorrow morning. I told him be sure that you ask for their number and a pack of cigarettes when you are done. Oy vey.
Gentlemen, before we sign out of here, is there anything else that you guys would like to add?
Awesome that we see this comment. Man, if you guys weren't watching the comment box tonight, that thing was moving as fast as it could. Thanks to Murdog, our guys on Twitter or on Twitch. We had a lot of comments from Twitch. We had some comments from Facebook Live. Man, I'm glad we have that up. Thank you guys so much for participating with us tonight.
Yeah, we love the participation. Love to see people chime in. We love the engagement. So thank you guys for listening, and we appreciate all the support.
Always. Thank you guys so much. We can't wait to chat with you guys next week. This has been the Voice of Reason podcast. We'll see you guys next time.